I need to address something. I think about a week ago, I received an email. And I read the email. And by the way, when I did read the email, I kept it anonymous. The person that wrote the email knew who they were when I read the email. I didn't even give a gender. I didn't even know that this particular person knew another person that watches this ministry and follows it until I receive another email from the second person, which I'll keep anonymous. And that's fine. You don't have to agree with everything that I say. God did not create robots. But I will still demand that you respect the position of the under shepherd. That means you can say what you want to me, but keep it in a respectable communication that doesn't disrespect the office. And when you write your emails to me, double check, make sure you want that particular email, text, or phone call to be sent. Because sometimes when you write something the first time and you analyze it, it's happened to me many times. You go back and say, well, that didn't sound exactly what I was trying to get across. So I'm going to change it here, I'm going to change it there. I have said many times, this is an open platform. Everything that you write, text, or your phone calls is sent to me. I have no one weeding out the ones that might get me upset, the ones that might aggravate me, the ones that might frustrate me, the ones that might make me mad, righteous indignation that is, and even the ones that make me sad. Everything comes to me. And I've said that many times over the years. But I don't appreciate the gossip between fellow watchers and followers of this program. I was dealing with that person in the only format that I could deal with it. If I was going to stop and deal with everything that comes in, I would do nothing else 24/7. If I was going to stop and answer every question, if I was going to stop to deal with every communication that needs correction or clarification, now a few of you have received phone calls from me. I ask you this: has the phone call that I made to you been short? Short in duration, that is. Because once I start communicating with somebody, it usually lasts anywhere from a half hour to an hour and a half, and sometimes even up to 3 hours. Now in the beginning years I could do that. There's only a few people. But now, there is no possible way I can follow through in that like manner. There's no way. I don't have the physical strength or the time. So everything has to be out here in the open. And I think anybody with a discerning spirit could figure that out if they've been around a while. But when this person got another person involved, that crossed the line. Because that is causing contention among the brethren. And the scripture says, mark those who cause contention. And this person pointed out that that person that originally wrote the email was embarrassed because others responded in the way they responded, and I read a few of those emails. Well, first and foremost, nobody knows who you were, except that now that one person that you communicated to and brought him into your problem. But I thank God for people that will have my back and will come to my support when they think something is off also. That's what many of you did. How many times we read through the book of Corinthians and Galatians and others and saying, that dumb church, those, I don't even want to say what I want to think, what I really want to say about those Corinthians and how much problems they gave Paul. And how many times he had to stop and dish out the spiritual 2x4. Why did those letters remain hidden? And I'm not saying these people are in the same category as Demas and others that Paul called out. Their names have been circulating for 2,000 years for anyone that reads the scriptures. How would you like to be that person that Paul called out? And I'm not saying any of these two people are in that same category as Demas. I don't believe that. Don't give me this stuff, you're embarrassed. Did you ever stop to think for 1 minute what you wrote, and it would get to me here live? Live. I guess some think I have to absorb all this and wear a smile on my face, or just let it go right by and ignore it. That's not how I'm built. And that's not the person that God called to be here in this seat. Not to be judged by you, by the way. If you don't like what's coming out of my lips to your ears, you can leave. No one has you chained down here. I hate to see anyone go, including the people that might go because of this. Because even though I haven't met any of these people that's part of this conversation, I've come to love in a way you can love from a distance. Because they were fellow soldiers in this fight to the finish, the good fight of faith. And by the way, this person also said they sent an apology to me. I never got an apology. I got a second email with more excuses. I'm being careful with my words because I don't want anyone to misunderstand me. When you throw scriptures at me, you better know what you're talking about. One of the scriptures was Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Oh, how Christians love to use this verse. And I haven't met anyone that keeps it in context when they're trying to make their wrong points. Now the verse says, I think it's 6, hang on a minute. No, it's verse 1, excuse me. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. How many times you've heard this verse preached or shared by a fellow Christian? I wish I had a nickel for everyone that thought I had a fault. And they're trying to approach me starting with this verse. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit. Now let's keep this all in context, folks, because it's so easy to take scriptures out of context. What is Paul referring to? What faults? I mean, there's no chapter and verses in the scriptures. That's an invention for a later time. This was a letter. The faults are listed early in the chapter, starting with verse 17. And it goes down: fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variances, wrath, seditions, heresies, envyings, and murders, and drunkenness, and revelings. Those are the faults that Paul was speaking about. It makes you wonder what was happening in the Galatian church too, which nobody wants to bring that up. Outside of Macedonia, Paul had problems that he's always dealing with. Why bring this up to the Galatia church if they were saved by the blood of Jesus Christ and everybody was in their holy hallelujah moments 24/7? It doesn't make any sense, does it? Were there people being murdered in the church? Fornication, maybe. Idolatry, witchcraft, possibly. That's what happened in the Corinthian church. He was talking about things that the flesh lust after and worked against the spirit. That's why in verse 60 he says, "This I say then, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lusts of the flesh. Obviously, there was problems there in the church of Galatia also that Paul had to stop and deal with. If it was not directly in the church, the outside influences trying to penetrate the church could have possibly also been going on 2,000 years ago. Whatever it is, Paul's saying that these faults, especially, you look at witchcraft and idolatry, there is no change of mind experience. And now, let's add the addition of going back to what you were worshiping before, more than likely. You didn't have that change of mind experience. You put Jesus plus this now. And plus this is even worse than most plus thises. This is, I don't even think that's a word, but it's a word now. This was a problem church. This had nothing to do what I had to do, what I felt in my spirit that needed correction. You can't even put it in this category, what Paul was dealing with. And of course, the other verse that was used was Matthew 18. And oh, how people love to use this verse also. Matthew 18, after Jesus taught on the parable of the lost sheep, he goes about when he talks about one sin, when one brother sins against another. Starting in verse 15. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, let me tell you right now, that word is related to sin. Let's get something straight. In the Greek, it's related to sin. More if thy brother shall sin against thee, and believe me, the first person that wrote that email, I don't really believe that person intentionally sinned against me. So I wouldn't even apply this principle to that conversation. I believe that person had a blank moment, to put it nicely, and wrote something that seemed like it's the right thing to write at the time, and maybe he had regrets that they wrote that the way they did. I don't believe that person sinned against me. I'm not one of these people that think everybody's sinning against me. Well, I got news for you. We all sitting against each other all the time. If that's the definition. More, if thy brother shall sin against thee, go and tell him his fault. Thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. And like I said, I don't have the luxury of spending all this time. And I probably shouldn't have to spend this much time on it, to tell you the truth. Only reason why that person's embarrassed because they got their ego tweaked. How many times I've said, leave your egos at the door. Egos produce less spiritual growth, not more. I talked about pride earlier. Ego fits in there too, you know. I don't have the time. If you bring something to me raw, expect a raw answer. And like I said, no one knew who you were until you made that known to someone else. No one. Not even the person that brought me the message. Because sometimes there's so many messages coming in, they don't even have time to read anything before it's given to me. And since the policy is an open door here, they're not walking on eggshells if they give me a bad message. I got thick skin. I can absorb all these messages, but I will, on occasion, especially people that I thought that were in the battle with me, could take the spiritual 2x4 if it was necessary. And I've had people that had spiritual 2x4s that are still part of this ministry for years. They probably could look back and then laugh at it now and see how far they've come from that point to the now. Some of you that are out there should testify to that. I should be like those other churches. Can I get a witness? But if he will not hear thee, of course, the gender here is he in the scriptures, but if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. I guarantee you, that person probably would not have accepted or hear me when I issued out the correction. So the next thing would have to happen, I would have to bring 2 or 3 more people into the conversation. So much for being embarrassed then. And if that doesn't work, it gets worse. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee 1 or 2 more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. Well, you know what? In this case, tell it to the thousands and thousands. As far as this ministry goes. Is that what you would have wanted? Tell it to the church, but if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. And that's the last place I want to take this. Void it at all costs. I've never excommunicated anyone. Do I believe at times it's necessary? Yes. But I've never done it. Because people either got their head screwed on straight or they left. Or they left. I can't say if this happened or not. I was not part of the conversation. But I wonder if that second person that got involved ever defended their pastor. I'm hoping for at least a little slight defense. Because in the email that I received, it was not clear if they did or not. And for anyone to think that I'm not heartbroken over this, you don't know me then. I think all these things are life and death matters. That's how I view them. Because I know the real issue behind it all. It's a spiritual enemy that's looking to produce divisions. Romans 16. By the way, wherever that phone's going off, you grab that phone and throw it into the deepest sea you can find. Who in the heck would be calling my cell phone, which is in a total different room right now, actually several rooms away, during a live program? Everybody that has my personal number knows better than that. Probably some telemarketer. I must be hitting a sensitive nerve in the unseen world. Romans 16, verse 17. Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions. See, that person that wrote the first email should have just said, you know what, I don't agree with you, this is not for me, and just leave, and kept their mouth shut. Especially if they knew someone else was also part of this ministry. That was the right thing to do if you didn't want to stay around any longer. You're too embarrassed, you got your ego too tweaked, or you don't think you deserve what you received, even though it was okay for what I received. You should have just kept your mouth shut and caused no division. And division is what you caused. And offenses contrary to the doctrine which you have learned, and avoid them or turn them away. Unfortunately, I have to do things like this periodically. This is just church house cleaning. And you know what's going to happen? Because it always has happened in the past when things like this move up to the forefront. Scores of people start writing to me and say, this was a great lesson for me. This is a great spiritual lesson. And I'm going to grow from it. I'm going to use it. I'm going to apply it to my life. Now the person that wrote the original email should properly apologize to me. And I really don't care if you really apologize to me, to tell you the truth. Apologize that you caused division among the brethren. I'm more concerned about that. Even if your ego cannot spare an apology to me, that's fine. But apologize for what you did to this church. And that's caused division. I might lose these people. I'll be sad to see them go. But this is the way this church operates. And be part of it, you should respect the office. And if you're not sure about what you're writing or communicating over the telephone, double check next time. And don't have me trying to figure out what you wanted to truly say or what your intentions were. I'm reading hundreds of messages. I can't stop and decipher every little thing of what you possibly might have meant. Words are tools. They're powerful tools. That's why you should yield them, not yield them, but use them properly. I don't want, excuse me, I got something in my throat. I don't want you to walk on eggshells when communicating to me. I don't think most of you do. But when I'm responding to something that bothers me, that I feel that church has been taken for granted, like I expressed, and abused by some people, to come back with those kind of remarks without clarification what your intentions were is a problem. Cut it out, folks. I love your communication, and most of you don't have a problem. But once in a while, you know, I'm so tired of people that get so offended and embarrassed and this and that. If that was your friend, or family member, or whoever it was, I'm willing to put money on it that person would not go and put their life on the line for you, to bring you something that gives you spiritual truth. I do that every time I sit here, every day of the week. I have to look over my shoulder. I just got another death threat from a Muslim last week. That's the kind of pastor you have. Willing to put his life on the line to bring you spiritual truth. So don't get off on me by saying, well, I felt embarrassed. I think I'll just leave it right there. That's all I have to say about it, and hopefully it's the last thing I have to say about it. Now it's your turn to communicate to me. Play the song.